Hello. Today I want to do something a bit different and I just want to sit and knit and chat. I am working on my Frankie sweater and the topic I want to chat about, rogue. Like, this is not, watching this is not watch this because you're interested in knitting and arts and craft. This is just, I want to sit and yap whilst I am knitting, so I'm going to sit and yap. And the topic I want to chat about, which you would have guessed based on the title, is being someone that was raised by YouTube, and I feel so grateful for it. Like, I really appreciate it, which I feel like is a bit of an unpopular take. I feel like the internet has had some negative impacts on a lot of people's childhoods, but for me, YouTube saved my life, honestly. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. For some background, I'm not going to provide heaps of context, but I get this repeated experience where people hear a bit about my childhood or my parents or what I grew up in, and the repeated question I get is, so how did you turn out okay? Like, how did you turn out so good? Which I am so flattered that that is how people perceive me. Like, a lot of people perceive that I did a good job despite my circumstances. But the thing about that is it's hard to come up with an answer on the spot. And one of the things that I think had a huge impact on why I am the person that I am today is YouTube. I think YouTube did a whole lot of my parenting, and I am really grateful for it for that. And today I wanted to go over some of the things that I learnt from YouTube and how it played such an important role in essentially like parenting me, raising me, providing me with helpful information, being a good role model essentially. But then I also want to talk about the ways that obviously the internet can not be ideal for some young people. I will briefly mention points about that, but overwhelmingly, this is a positive praise for how much YouTube helped me, because it is quite a common discussion of whether young people should really have this same access to the internet. And when I think about people taking away my rights as a child to YouTube specifically, other social media take them away. Those were not necessarily safe environments for young people, and I'll talk more on that. But YouTube for me was so important. I'm not sure I would still be here, or at least be the person that I am in the place that I am, if it weren't for YouTube. So I'm going to talk on some of the ways that YouTube has positively impacted my life. Now, I am 23 years old, turning 24 this year. So I was 3 years old when YouTube began. So YouTube has been kind of a constant thing throughout my whole life, saying that we didn't have a computer, I think, or a computer that I had access to till about 8 years old. We had one of those big boxy computers in our main living space. And so I think the main thing at that point that I was watching on YouTube was just funny videos like ASDF movies and other similar early YouTube things. And then at around 10 years old, I think is when I first had access to devices when I wasn't in a shared space with family or anything like that, whether that was either going to a library or borrowing a book, an ebook, at school. That was like a little laptop. And I think I got an iPod at some point, but I don't know exactly when, but I just remember having access to watching a lot of YouTube. So I think I had an iPod. But a lot of the content that I'd watch was either DIY, vlogs, or I would quite literally be searching questions I want to know the answers to and looking for informational videos online. So that gives a vague outline for why I think YouTube was so helpful to me, was the type of content that I was consuming. But some of the things that I've learned and the ways that YouTube has so positively impacted my life, I've written a little list, so I'll go through my list here. But I believe it's things that a lot of people don't think about when they're thinking about young people and having access to the internet. Okay, one of the things is vlogs. They gave me the means to see what was possible with other people's lives. I believe that to to get anywhere in life in terms of where you want to be, you have to believe that it's possible, and you have to know what options to some extent are out there for you. It's really hard to see yourself becoming anything other than what your parents are if there's no one modeling that to you. And so if I only had my parents as models as to what I was going to be when I was older, or what kind of person I was going to be, or what kind of lifestyle I was going to live, I don't think I'd have much hope for my own life, and I definitely wouldn't be the person that I am now. I think seeing YouTubers' vlogs made me realize a lot of things about what my life could look like. Like, first of all, it was possible to not be under the poverty line. Like, in my head, the poverty line was just my permanent status under the poverty line, because that is what I had always lived with. Like, my whole life experience had been not being able to afford food, like not really being able to afford the places we were living, similar stuff to that. Like, there was always stress around money. And seeing a lot of vloggers came from a place of privilege already, but not all of them. Not all of them had insane amounts of money already. Some of them then developed that lifestyle through things such as YouTube or other career pursuits. And it was really comforting for me to see, and guiding for me to see, what kind of job opportunities were out there and what kind of lifestyles were out there, but also being able to imagine for myself not just different job opportunities, but the idea of a different living situation where I genuinely felt safe and not stressed. I think if I hadn't had YouTube like vloggers showing me that it's possible to live in a peaceful house, in a relationship with someone that is safe, or just by yourself in a safe house and have a calming environment, like the idea of a calming, safe environment, I feel like I pretty much only knew that was an option because of YouTube. I don't know if I would have worked out that that was an option for me without watching it. And then a few of the other things. Oh, watching vlogs helped me build emotional regulation tools. Now, you learn a lot about emotional regulation through how your parents regulate their emotions. So if you have parents that either don't have really good tools for regulating their emotion, or the tools that they do have are mostly vices or tools that hurt other people, then you're not going to know how to process your own emotions and deal with your own emotions either. I remember when I was younger struggling with my emotions so much because I didn't know any of the right ways to deal with it, but I knew I didn't want to deal with it the same way that my parents did. And finding YouTubers that found, you'd watch them like in a vlog, they'd emotionally regulate themselves. If something went wrong, it wasn't, oh, we're gonna yell at everybody. It's, okay, we're going to fix and assess the situation. Or if they felt really depressed and sad, they would do some self-care, and they would have all these feelings and they'd talk it out with the camera rather than bottling it all up, or taking it out on the people around them. And I believe those kinds of skills are skills you only really learn by seeing someone else do it. Like, I love journaling, but if I had never seen someone else journaling, I was not going to figure it out at such a young age by myself as being a helpful way to cope with anything. But in media and on the internet, I would have been about 10 years old, journaling was seen as like a really good thing to do for yourself, and I wouldn't have known it was a good thing to do without seeing people on the internet do similar things. So emotional regulation was a huge thing that I learned from YouTube. Yeah, and just self-care as a concept, like the concept of believing, hey, I'm important and I need to take care of myself, like not just skincare, but all kinds of self-care, like eating healthy and looking after yourself and checking in with yourself and doing things you enjoy and prioritizing yourself. Up until YouTube, I mean, I've always been someone that wants to prioritize other people in my life. I want to check that other people are okay and do what I can to help people. But watching people online do things for themselves to make themselves happy I needed that example, because for myself, I'd say that my parents did things for themselves. Like, I don't think that I chose to be someone that always wanted to help people because my parents necessarily were. I think it was more that I saw a lot of people in pain emotionally a lot of the time, and I wanted to fix it. And I kind of felt like that was my role, which I don't think is fair to ever put on a kid, to have a kid think they need to help in that way and fix emotional situations or anything similar, or take care of everybody, I think is what I wanted to do. But it's what and I don't think that was necessarily, no one was asking me to do that, but I took it upon myself because I could see that people needed taking care of. And it wasn't until YouTube that I realized how much you need to take care of yourself first before you can take care of other people in the same way. So self-care, like when people diss on self-care YouTubers, I'm like, no, I needed that. Like, some people just need someone on the internet demonstrating to them that it's good to prioritize washing your face every day, not just because you have a clean face, but because you need to do something for yourself every once in a while. Like, trigger warning, talking about mental health. I was not diagnosed with depression. I'd say around grade 5 though, I definitely experienced depression. From what my understanding of it is, it's not uncommon in my family to have mental health struggles. I'd say that both my parents deal with mental health struggles. At the time, school has normally been my safe space, like, because I didn't really want to be at home. I normally really liked school, but at that age, school wasn't interesting to me, talking to people wasn't interesting to me. I wouldn't take care of myself, I wouldn't wash my hair. I would actually, like, just go stand in the shower room, but I couldn't be bothered actually showering. Like, I was, like, I would say what I would call depressed at this time. And the thing that made the difference for me is I literally Googled, like, at grade 5, how to fix depression or something like that. I think first I must have been Googling stuff to figure out even, like, a grade 5 self-diagnosing themselves with depression isn't the most helpful thing in the world, but at the same time, sometimes that's what you come to when you're just going through it. And I looked up things I could do, and some of the things that came up included, like, eating avocado and healthy fats to include your mental health. And, like, that's become a huge part of my life now, is how nutrition impacts your health and your body and everything. Like, I study nutrition now, and that all started not with, I think, what a lot of people are interested in, which is maybe, like, getting super fit and getting the perfect body. For me, nutrition started with, how can I improve my mental health? Because my mental health was going so downhill and I needed control over something, and finding ways I could improve my mental health was what helped me a lot. And so being able to Google stuff about, like, I started the habits of, like, going on a walk every day. And going on a walk it became such a good mental escape for me. And I'm not sure I would have necessarily coped with my home environment that well if going for a walk wasn't what I did. And that is a healthy self-care habit and way of coping with poor mental health that I would have known absolutely nothing about. Because the thing is like, if your poor mental health has to do with how you've been raised and stuff, it's very unlikely that your parents are going to be the best source of information for how to improve your mental health. It's very unlikely that they will even accept your mental health as what you're experiencing. I am lucky in that I feel like my mum always understood that we might be experiencing bad mental health. I don't think she might fully understand how much how we were raised impacted our mental health, but she at least could see that we were not, like, doing well, you know, like, she didn't just ignore it or anything. But obviously we didn't go do anything about it. Like, I didn't get checked out or go to the, like, you know, get any help with it. So YouTube was my help, and I really appreciate that. And then, yeah, helping with health concerns. If you have a lot of trauma from maybe bad family dynamics, or if you have been below the poverty line your whole life, or any other, like, causes of long-term stress, you're going to have health conditions. It's just, it's how it works. Your body can't handle that long-term stress for super long extended periods of time. And lifestyle is a huge impact on your health, and I think being able to watch YouTubers and figure out how I could improve my health through lifestyle was so important to me at a young age, because no one was demonstrating that to me. No one was demonstrating how I could take care of myself, because I think my parents were struggling to even take care of themselves to some extent. And so they couldn't demonstrate that to me. I needed somebody else to teach me how to do that. So yeah, YouTube was super helpful for that. Some of these things I learnt passively through just watching other people's lives. In fact, most of these things, some of them were things I became curious about, and even at a very young age, like in primary school, was looking up these things. Do I think that is normal for your average primary schooler? No, but I do think that we ignore mental health struggles in primary schoolers way too often. Like, I think sometimes people think people aren't dealing with those things until they're a lot older. Obviously, you'd want a primary schooler to be living a perfectly happy life, but that is often not how it works. Like, bullying exists in primary school. If people don't have great home situations, that still exists in primary school. And all of these things will lead to mental health struggles, whether the kid really understands that that's what they're going through or not. But YouTube was really helpful for that, because it helped me understand that, and I wouldn't have understood that otherwise. It introduced me to all of my hobbies. So DIY YouTubers were such a big thing back when I was younger. There was this era where everyone was making, I forgot what they're called, dream catchers. I made so many handmade dream catchers, and it was the first time I think I fully connected the dots in terms of how arts and crafts and similar things were so important as like a meditative escape from everything. Like, I could really calm myself down by doing arts and crafts, but also I could have more say in what was happening in my life through arts and crafts. Like, I would watch a YouTuber and they would redecorate their whole space. Like, and redecorating your room when you live at home with family is such an important concept, because it is your only private space that you have. It's the only space that you can make your own. And even YouTube taught me cleaning habits. Like, my room would get cleaned and organized in the way that YouTubers would do it, not the way that I grew up in my house with things, because we owned a lot of stuff growing up. Not in a, we had a lot of stuff in a good way type of thing, when you're a low-income household and so your parent decides to buy everything that's under 50 cents at an op shop because it's such a deal kind of way. You know, like, I think there's this belief sometimes with people that are struggling with finances that they need to buy things when they can because they're constantly scared of running out of money. And so we had just absurd amounts of stuff in our shared spaces, and that pushed me to love to get rid of stuff. I don't like having heaps of things. I have lots of craft things. Craft is like my one area where I'm happy to hang on to stuff because I know I'm going to create something with it. And anything I've created, like, I normally like hanging on to. But I don't want to fill my spaces. I don't believe you should ever store things on couches. I don't believe you need to fill your whole room with furniture. I believe in having some empty space because energetically, that's just what feels better to me. And that is something I only learned through watching people on YouTube who cleared and decluttered their spaces and then did these little DIYs to decorate their spaces and really make it their own peaceful environment. And that has always been a way I've coped with things. And honestly, like, my dream life is owning a house one day and being able to DIY more things and really make it my own. And I feel like aspiring to that so much is because of a lot of what I saw on YouTube. And it is so fulfilling to me and provides me so much peace that I didn't have in any other aspect of my life. I didn't have that level of peace and creation until watching DIY YouTubers and becoming someone that just loves to craft and do similar artsy things. So yes, love all the hobbies it introduced me to. craft YouTubers also just taught me the ability of learning a new skill. I think that pretty much all craft YouTubers at the time, still now probably, have growth mindsets. If you are into crafting, you probably have a growth mindset because you don't know how to do everything until you start doing it and you start creating and you start learning how to do it. So it teaches the growth mindset and how to learn a new skill. And that doesn't have to just be applied in creating things. It can be applied in every area of your life. But now you feel confident in your ability to learn something new. And so, yeah, if YouTube taught me a growth mindset, essentially. Neither of my parents have growth mindsets to any extent. Definitely very fixed mindsets. And so if I didn't have the influence of YouTube, I wasn't going to have a growth mindset either, which I think is the biggest determining factor in anyone's success is whether you have a growth or a fixed mindset. Absolutely. What else have I learned from YouTube? I've learned literally everything about who I am as a person from YouTube. It taught me that there's no point in fearing failure. Failure is not bad and trying things is great. Now, the best example of this, and I think I would have been learning this from other YouTubers previous to me ever watching this, but through like BuzzFeed and the Try Guys have made so much money out of being bad at stuff. Like, so, don't get me wrong, sometimes they do a great job, but majority of the time, they're just trying something, making like a bit of a fool out of themselves, trying something for the first time. They're not gonna do that great at it, and that's where the value is in it. The value in it, if we were watching a bunch of people that just did it perfectly, we would not find their content nearly as interesting. And I think that's just such a great approach to take to life, where you're just trying new things all the time, and if it's something you really enjoy, stick with it. If not, no problem, no issue. If you're never good at that skill, perfectly fine. I think enjoying partaking in it is the important part, and I think there's a lot to be said about how fun it is to do badly at something once you let go of the expectation to do well at it. Like, for example, I never really played any sports growing up. I am really uncoordinated, depth perception not there. My friends have started a social volleyball team and I'm horrible at it, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun to do things as a group, and the reason I feel very comfortable is because I have a group of friends where doing well at something is kind of irrelevant. Like obviously we all celebrate whenever anyone does well, and my friends are such successful people and they do well at so many things, but I think the reason they're able to be the successful people that they are is because they also know it's okay to be bad at stuff. Like, that's really not an issue. I don't think any of them judge me for being bad at volleyball, and they still want me to be a part of it. And I think that, yeah, YouTube really highlights that through channels like the Try Guys and something similar. Fearing failure is the biggest thing that can possibly hold you back, because you will fail. It's not like, oh, what if you don't fail? It's like, you will fail. You will fail multiple times at the same things over and over again. But it's the matter of continuing to keep going at it. Or if you're not that interested, it's a matter of just like still trying something just because you wanted to, and not letting whether you're bad at something be the deciding factor of whether you're going to try it or not. So, like, super important lesson that I learned from YouTube. Taught me fearing failure. Ooh, this is a big one, but it taught me how to connect with people. And you might be like, girl, what do you mean? Once again, my parents, very antisocial people. Friendships, not heaps of a thing for them, and they didn't connect with us to any extent, and so I was low-key like so unfamiliar with friendships and how to show that you care for people, and like physical affection, not something that we ever took part in whatsoever. And I think that the reason I have a pretty good grasp on what a healthy friendship relationship looks like, on what a healthy romantic relationship looks like, because I never had any of those modeled to me growing up, is because I'd watch vloggers, and vloggers that would, like the British crew, like Zoe and Alfie and like all of their friends and everything, they modeled friendships and they modeled how you interact with people that you care about, and they modeled what safe relationships look like. I can't say that all it's definitely not all vlogging groups on YouTube fit into that category, but I feel like I grew up in a very good era of YouTube, and so watching them, I definitely got more positive influences from them than negative influences. I remember at some point looking up like how to hug people or something, because physical affection was so not a normal thing for us. And like, or how to, like, different conversation skills. I looked up a lot of stuff about different conversation skills because I wanted people to enjoy talking to me. Which, to be fair, don't know how much I picked up. Like, I will talk nonstop, and I am the kind of person that, like, I hope we both talk over each other in a conversation. That is the sign of a good conversation for me. I spent a long time trying to convince myself to be a bit quieter and talk in a way that I couldn't really talk in. But I also learned a lot of valuable things about communicating with people, you know, asking lots of questions, and similar things. And so it all sounds like ridiculous stuff to need to look up on YouTube, because I know that most people probably learn these things just by interacting in their environment. But if the only people that you're around don't necessarily have good social skills, then it might be hard to see how to act. Or if the people you're around don't effectively express care for people, then you'll want to learn how to show people that you care, even if that hasn't been demonstrated to you. And so YouTube definitely helped me with that. And it just taught me a lot about psychology, and how to cope with emotionally immature parents, and how to keep yourself sane in the not most nice environment. And I really appreciated everything that I learned from it. And you might be sitting here thinking, that's not what most kids are learning from the internet. And I do agree. The thing about the internet is, or from YouTube, for example, is it's a tool. And so whoever's holding that tool is going to change how it's going to be used. And for me, from a very young age, I was quite an independent thinker. And I never liked to think something just because somebody else said it. Like, from an unreasonably young age, my parents would teach me stuff, and I remember at 4 years old thinking, well, I'm not gonna take your advice on it because I don't want to end up like you. Like, that was essentially like my 4-year-old thought process. Sorry, one second, I just gotta think about where I'm at with my knitting. Which I think that I had quite a large amount of self-awareness, but also it meant I approached everything with a somewhat analytical perspective of, that's not quite the right word, but I would question every bit of information that came to me, whether that be from my parents, whether that be from teachers, or from the media. Now, that's because basically any information I received from my parents, I could tell was not legitimate or good for me or trustworthy or anything. They're quite inconsistent people, so you pick up quite quickly that there's mostly a load of not good information coming out of their mouths. And so it meant I was kind of ready to hear unreliable information on the internet and discern which information I thought was helpful to me. I think that if you have parents that you have grown up used to listening to and used to being able to trust, like if you've been able to trust people up until this point, the internet is a weird thing to navigate because you haven't needed to not trust anything. But the thing is you can't trust the internet. So if you are trusting, you will quite possibly land yourself on a part of the internet that isn't as positive, or land yourself with really inaccurate information on the internet. And so those are ways that the internet can be really dangerous because it is an echo chamber. So whatever you are looking for, you will find and it will begin to consume your feed or whatever it is. So you kind of need to go into YouTube and the internet looking for something good to begin with. And I think I'm just so lucky that little kid me had the initiative to really take control over what I was looking at on the internet. I didn't have social media until I was maybe year 8 or something, like in high school. YouTube was the only thing that I had access to earlier, and I think that was good because it keeps you safe. I think private messaging for young people is really unsafe, and you can private message on Instagram and Snapchat. We used Kik back in the day, which everyone knows how many like unsafe people were on Kik. But on all of those platforms, like even Skype, like Skype has been used inappropriately by so many people with young people on the internet. Whereas YouTube, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no private messaging. And so everything that you say is kind of in the comments of videos, or mostly you're just receiving, like, watching videos of other people. So if YouTube regulations are doing their thing and they're getting rid of unsafe content, which they don't always do, but if they are, there's less opportunity for people to expose you as a young person to unsafe things compared to other social medias. Not saying it doesn't happen. People literally die because of stuff they've seen on the internet all of the time, and there is a lot of unsafe stuff on the internet. But I think it is a tool with great power that can either like pretty much save a life like it did for me, or it can do the opposite. And so that does make the debate hard of how much access should young people have, because I want them to have access to everything I had access to in terms of being able to help yourself and parent yourself at such a young age if you don't have other role models in your life. Like, I needed those positive role models, but not everything on YouTube is positive role models. I'd say that at the time that I was on YouTube, it was a lot easier to find positive role models. Now it's quite hard, like, to find positive role models, in my opinion, on YouTube. Not necessarily in the craft community. I think there's heaps in the craft community, but you know, there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube, and so it can be quite dangerous. And so this video is basically to say that it was so helpful for me, and I'm not sure if anyone else will relate to that, about how much YouTube has shaped who they are as a person. I'm not a huge fan of short form content. It's not even necessarily because of what the content might be about, but just I don't believe anyone's really taking in information in the way they might think they are when they're scrolling. You're just kind of numbing yourself a little bit, finding some quick dopamine, and low-key like burning your eyeballs whilst you stare at the screen. I think long form content can have a lot more value because it's more like a normal conversation a lot of the time, and I believe you're more likely to take in information and actually learn from it. Also, just not like, it's slower, it's not going to expose yourself to more than you can possibly consume mentally at one time. And so I am a big fan of long form content because it is long form content. I mean, it's based on the era I grew up where long form content was much more popular. It is long form content that essentially raised me. And I'm so grateful for it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I learnt so much from YouTube, and I think that everyone who has the opportunity to take advantage of everything they can learn from YouTube, it doesn't have to be about psychology or anything. You can really learn about anything. Pretty much every skill that I have or thought that I have learnt some of it on YouTube, which is kind of crazy. Maybe I need to get offline a bit. But when you don't have heaps of, like, everyone in my life is around my age, and so if I want to have insight from anyone older than me and have any more wiser influences in my life, I need to come onto YouTube and find those role models, because I don't have those role models in my day-to-day life so much. And so I think YouTube has been really, really helpful. I think I'm really lucky in that younger me used it in the way that I did. But I'd be really interested to hear other people's inputs on if YouTube ever helped them in this way. Like, did they also find it as their positive influence, or for a lot of people here, do they find YouTube did the opposite and it was a really negative influence for them? Like, I'm really interested to hear both sides of that story. But yeah, I have enjoyed chatting and yapping. It's a very random topic of conversation. Just the concept of role models and influences shaping who you are in general is a very interesting topic, because obviously whilst you're growing up, you don't know how everything's going to shape you, to what degree everything's going to shape you. It's like how people say you are the 5 people you spend the most time with. I do very much agree with that statement. So you want to pick your friends very carefully. But similarly so, I think when you're spending so much time consuming content online, you become a bit of the people that you're watching online as well, which could be really good if you're watching positive influences, but sometimes we watch things because they're entertaining and not necessarily because they're good for us, which, like, in moderation, perfectly fine. But I wonder if, to some extent, if you watch something that's entertaining but not a great influence for long enough, are you going to change who you are as a person in not so positive of a way? I would love to know if anyone knows any studies or anything on like how different type of content consumption, or like how following a certain influencer or YouTuber or something religiously impacts your personality. Like, how much of your personality, of their personality, are you going to adopt? Because I know that a lot of my personality I picked up from YouTubers that I watched growing up. Not necessarily in terms of mannerisms or anything, but in terms of values. A lot of my values are directly from people on the internet. A lot of how I like to spend my time directly from people on the internet. So if my values have not been shaped by my parents, I have very different values to my parents. And so I wonder how much of those values was just me as a person already, and that's why I sought out YouTubers that acted in those ways and were aligned with those values, or if because I was so young and impressionable, to some extent a lot of the YouTubers shaped what my values became. I would love anyone's insight on that. I have no idea which one's like chicken or egg type situation there. But yeah, if you have any thoughts on this topic, go ahead and comment below. I did a few rows on my knitting whilst we knitted and chatted. I've got a lot more body to do, so I might do a lot more knit and chat videos. If you have any topics that you think would be interesting to talk about, leave those in the comments, and I will see you guys in another video.